Hey, everybody, welcome to the Mike and Tom show. We got our friend Mike Boudreau back in here with us. Excited to have a conversation with him, talking about all sorts of stuff. And we got a special announcement to be making as well here in just a short bit. And we're glad to have you here.
I'm sharing us on Facebook, so I'm hoping you're out there going to share us on Facebook. Like us, subscribe, because that's what keeps us motivated to do this. So it gets me paid.
Anyway, we're happy to have Mike in here. And Tom, you want me to twist your arm and make you do the Covenant Coffee?
Well, I was trying to give us some publicity. So we are brought to you by Covenant Coffee. Randy Martin over there, where there's hope in a cup, one at a time. Randy's out there, and he's got 2 locations now. We'll be bringing more of that to you in the near future.
Blake announced it publicly.
So hey, where the old Cloud9 coffee shop was, in the tower on Mohawk.
Right across the street from us.
And go out there, support, because Randy helps a disenfranchised group called Emancipated Foster Kids.
Do you know Randy, Mike?
I don't.
Well, you're going to.
We need to make that intro for you.
So Hope in a Cup, Randy, he helps these young people who really the system is, they've worn out their welcome, I think. They're
Emancipated Foster Youth.
Yeah, they are. They basically, there was money tied to them, and now there's not. So
he also helps them pre-emancipation as well.
Well, if he gets
housing and everything.
But I thought I was supposed to do this.
No, go ahead. I'm helping you. I'm helping you help me.
If you want to just do it, just do it. Take it over.
All right. I will. I know
you will.
All right. So anyway, Randy, thank you so much. But Randy does a great job with the Emancipated Foster Youth, and pre-emancipation, he works with them as well. Covenant Coffee gives them life skills, business skills, job skills, and helps them make an income and find housing and everything else there, because we know that those are the at-risk youth. I'm sure you've, in your position, dealt with many of those people, of that group of people, so a lot of times they unfortunately go down a different path than maybe they don't necessarily even want to go down that path, but life just kind of puts them in a position where they have to make choices.
There's statistics on that group, and so we want to break down the statistics. So we're here with Mike Boudreau, and
good job, Tom.
You've been busy, Mike.
Good.
You've been busy. I've been following you, and I gotta say this: if you're out there, all I do is I get contacts from friends of mine that, and a lot of you out there know that I'm part of Shielding the Frontline Kern County, coming soon, Shielding the Frontline Nashville.
That's right.
And so we deal with a lot of first responders. So I hear so much about you, Mike, from that realm. A good friend of ours, our executive director, Trevor Martinezson, heard you on the debate, called me, and I happened to be in Nashville. When he called me, said, "Man, this guy's sensational."
Oh, that's great.
And I just, I told, when Trevor's real close to all of us.
Oh, yeah.
And there again, he was just like, I love what he says, but he goes, man, his faith is just out there.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that, and all of us noticed it. So bring us up, Mike. So you've been running for election in this SB 20, is that what it's called? And it got confusing, because I wasn't confused, but some other people were confused about the election that we just had.
I got a little bit confused because I was wondering why I couldn't vote for you. I'm not in your district.
Well, it's congressional district CD 20.
I'm in Valadeo's district.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the election that just happened was for the congressional seat that Kevin left, and it's from now till December. Yeah. And then November election, which is between you and Vince, and I'm telling you, congratulations, you've done a great job. I've just watched you. Every poll that comes out, you kept creeping up. Creeping up, and you went through a neighborhood where Scott Winkler lives. And you met Scott Winkler. He's a local defense attorney. And Mike and Scott, I don't know if he introduced himself as that, but he says, man, I was so impressed with Mike Boudreau, because he came up and he was just putting some old school work in my neighborhood. We had a great conversation, and so So Scott, you told me you voted for Mike.
You know why I like Mike. One of many reasons I like Mike. He's a man of faith, of course, which is the first reason. But secondly, and this might piss some people off, but I don't really care.
You don't care.
He's not a career politician.
I know.
I'm not.
Well, and he doesn't say what people just want to hear. And we've all noticed that. So bring us up to date where you're at.
Yeah, I know you guys have pretty much, wrapped it around pretty good. May 21st was the election to finish out McCarthy's seat. Our numbers were climbing. They were doing really well. We didn't know how quickly they would climb and if we were able to get to the point of victory, but it's a challenge, and anytime that, you're in a campaign and voters are just really not well informed or well educated as to the candidates, it can become very, very challenging, especially when people are living their lives. They're going to work every day. They're going to church on weekends and enjoying their families. Sometimes the last thing they want to pay attention to is an election.
Well, what did you say, Mike? Most people are not well educated about candidates.
Yeah, and I hate to say, educated, because I don't want people to
informed.
Think we don't want to think, voters aren't dumb. They're smart, but being informed is so incredibly important. And for me in Kern County, I'll tell you this. So on May 21st, so everyone knows, we lost on the 21st. But
I don't consider it a loss.
It's not a loss. We've been receiving so many phone calls of just, congratulatory. You've done more against a pretty heavy machine, then people are pretty impressed with that, which always, makes me feel good. But in Tulare, Kings, and Fresno County, we were winning 53-47.
Wow.
Right. So in the areas where people know me, we were winning. Come down into Kern County, and as those numbers began to trickle in, and it flopped very quickly. We became what we knew was the underdog in Kern County, and so we ended up not winning the 21st. However, we are still in the race until November. What does that look like for the future? We're not just real sure. When it comes to the person in position, he's a Republican. His background's different than my background. His belief system, slightly different belief system. So it really becomes a matter of informing the voters.
Well, I like the article that basically the person you're running against said, I had my eyes on DC. That's where I put the crosshairs. And I think the amount of money that they spent versus what you spent was a stark difference.
Well, and for you to have done that well, against that level of...
Well, we had 11 people in the race. I was one of 11 in the first go, and there was $1 million spent against me. And I was the only one targeted. And so was
you were.
Yeah, I was hit pretty hard on stuff that, quite frankly, was not true. But that's where it's important for the voter to become informed. If you have an information pamphlet that comes out, inform yourself, educate yourself about that candidate. Because I've learned in politics over the course of my career is the first hit piece that comes out is the guy I'm not voting for. And the reason is because you're saying what's bad about the opponent versus what you're going to do as a candidate.
That's a great point.
It is. And I think that's why I always liked where you stood and where you came from. And on our show, you said, I'm doing this because I believe God told me to do this.
I agree. And I believe that he did. I believe. And if you remember what I said as well, I said, that doesn't mean I win.
Yeah,
I very clearly remember that.
I tell that to people. I go, I don't think Mike got in this race to win, even though you're putting out your effort and your best hand to do that. But I just do believe it's setting you up for future opportunities, that doors God opened.
So many doors are opening. It's, we won't be able to talk about everything that's happening today because I'm just not at liberty to discuss. But I can tell you that there are so many doors opening that only God could be doing it.
Yes. And so, yeah. So how would you, can I ask this? Because your wife was a big part of the decision making.
Huge.
Because she supported you in whatever you said. I love it when you said, I decided, honey, I'm not going to run. She's like, okay.
Yeah.
Honey, I'm going to run. Okay, honey.
Yeah.
She was there being that Proverbs 31 woman that was supporting you, but she had an opinion.
She's a very educated woman. She has her master's degree. She's a teacher. She's administration as a principal. And then she was going through her career development as well. She's being considered for a director position.
Oh, I love that.
And she has since been promoted into that position. She's director of human resources in our school district there. And she was blessed with getting that position. And so when we were moving forward in this race, she had her own challenges within, her career, but was still very supportive of me. I remember she would get off of work. We would travel to Ridgecrest and we would visit with as many people as we could, putting up signs, going door to door. She'd get back in the car 9, 10 o'clock at night. We'd have a 3-hour drive home. She would talk and then fall asleep, get up the next morning about 4 or 5 a.m. and get up and do it all over again. She's a powerhouse.
Well, there was a friend of ours that basically was at the church you last spoke at.
Okay.
And said that they were there in attendance.
Which church was that?
I think it was
Rock Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she told me this story, and it's actually Senator Shannon Grove.
Okay.
And she said that there was a person there that came up to you and had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And you immediately left the purpose you were there and became a man of God and laid hands on her and prayed for her.
We did.
That's what I've always liked about Mike. That's what I've always liked about you, Mike, because the first thing you said about why are you running is because God told you to. And that was it. It wasn't because I want to win or because I want to, like, of course you do want to make a difference and an impact. And there's lots of things that we've gone over in the past, but all of those things aside, the number one was God told me to.
God told me to. And I'll tell you, every day there was something different. And people would say, well, what are your plans for Thursday? I can't tell you my plans for Thursday. I don't know, because it changes on a daily basis. And I'll tell you, one of the stories that I do tell is that I was at this big event. Maybe I told you this already. If I did, go ahead and stop me. But we were at this big forum where all the candidates were able to give up and give a 3-minute, really quick, what even 3 minutes? I think it was a minute and a half, really quick spiel in front of all of these people as to your candidacy. And so, Senate went first, I think, congressional candidates next, and it went on down the line. And so I had these two women come up to me, and one said, hey, Sheriff, we just want to introduce ourselves. We're supporting you. You don't know us, but we believe in what you're doing. And I talked about, we do need God back in this country, because that was really my platform, God and country. And she says, see, I told you, you need to get saved. Turned and looked at her friend and said, you need to be saved. And I said, you're not saved. And so I told the story at Rock Harbor Church, too, because on the way down here, people need to remember I'm also the sheriff coroner. And as the coroner, I deal with death on a daily basis. And I deal with families and people going through death and tragedy. And I had a friend who was in a car accident on the way down to the event where he had been killed in a car accident. And my staff called and said, hey, so-and-so has been killed in a car accident. And so my concern then was the family and how are we treating them? And so I told her, I said, on the way down here, I had a friend who was killed in a car accident. And I said, but I know where his soul's going, because I know exactly what his belief system was. I said, if you leave here tonight and you get in a car accident, which you could, where's your soul going? And as we talked to her, she was so receptive. She wasn't resistant. She was very receptive. She was on the verge of just wanting to become saved. I put my hands on both of her shoulders and I said, let's do it right now.
I love that.
And so we brought her to the Lord. And so what I tell the story is I said, look, if I'm in this congressional race because that soul needed to be saved, because she's going to make impacts on several people bringing souls to the Lord, then that's why I'm in this race, right? And so I have story after story after story in this congressional race just like that, where people's lives were changed and eyes were opened, and there's great things that were taking place.
Well, I love the trajectory, because it's not, I always tell people this, Mike, and this Mike always corrects me, so feel free to. But I believe that God wants us to change on our journey to a destination. And as we do, we reach that destination, and whatever God's will is for that outcome, at least we've been changed. And we've touched people on the way.
And I think the destination changes.
Yeah,
because when you're obedient, the Lord, as it talks in the Bible, that he will trust you with more. And so if you're obedient here and your destiny was, or your path was taking you this way, but yet you were obedient in multiple phases, God goes, I think we're going to go this way now, because now you're trusted with more. And so I believe that path often changes.
It's almost like, and as you look at the parable of the mina, or the talents, it's kind of that same idea. Basically there's a trust factor when the master gives the slave or the servant a mina, it's considered money, or a talent, which some consider a gift, if you depends on how you look at that scripture, but you're supposed to use it. And God talks about the one servant who just said, I just buried it, or just put it someplace because I didn't want to be accountable to it when I came back, and I just gave it back. God never just wants us to give it back.
And the other thing with that story, the one thing always I take away with that is it takes a little bit of risk and faith.
Oh, but do you ever find anything worth it if there isn't risk involved?
You don't.
Risk, it brings a reward.
And I'm an elected sheriff, so I've been through campaigns before, and the first election I went through was very challenging. It was daunting and lots of nasty things being said. And when you get to the other side, You earned it.
Yeah.
You earned that. You didn't buy it.
Yeah.
You earned it. And so with those talents that each one took a little risk, right? We took a little risk. And it doesn't talk about in the Bible what risks they took other than this is what we did with it and we were rewarded. What if you took that risk and for whatever reason you failed? I personally think God would still reward them for that risk.
Well, and he did. And he took the one from the person who buried it and said, here you go for the guy who had 5, because you're going to invest in the person that has contributed the most. And I'm not saying that God is a work-based God, especially Jesus. That's not the case. But I do believe he wants us to be faithful.
Well, and that's what happened with me. I knew I was supposed to get into this race. The doors were so wide open, it was clear. And so I got in and I took a risk.
It did.
And I've seen Mike. We were talking about faith, and you didn't know this because I didn't get a chance to catch you. But I know for a fact I've seen you attend church, not campaigning, just because you're a man of faith.
Yep.
I don't know if you were aware of this, but I've seen you at Canyon Hills a few times.
Oh yeah, I've been there a few times.
And I was like, he's just there attending church. He's not going to shake hands and kiss babies.
I just went to go to church, and I'll tell you the other thing that I'm enjoying so much. The more and more my name is out there, the more and more churches invite. And I have visited no less than 20 different churches up and down this district, all up and down the Central Valley. And in Ridgecrest, we attended a really nice church. And it wasn't a campaign. It was there to attend church. And I have to tell you, Christians and believers are hungry for change. They're praying for change. There's good people all up and down. Doesn't matter if it's a church of 20 or a church of 1,500. They're all believing.
Well, I'm going to do a self-serving promo right now, because after we do those show live, we're going to record a version of Relevant Rants tonight, where we're going to talk about the hope that a lot of people are putting into our country right now.
Yeah.
So after this show, we're going to come back live, and Mike is going to bless us and join us for that.
But I know as you've been campaigning, and I think different people saw this differently, and maybe it was just one of those, it stood out because I know you. I felt like I saw more of your signs around town. Yeah. And I even texted you about a couple of the people were taking, being jerks.
They were taking them down.
But I felt like I saw more of your signs than I saw anybody. I did. I texted Mike. I said, it's back up.
Yeah, he did. Well, and I'll tell you what to do. They would say the sign is down. We'd come back and we'd replace it. And those cost money, so and they're not cheap, and
I saw the budget you put into this race.
My budget came from people who live here.
Yeah.
My money came from people who live here. My money didn't come from DC or special interest groups or PACs. My money came from people. And that meant more to me than anything. But we put signs up everywhere. We shook as many hands as we could. But let me tell you something about Bakersfield. It's big.
It is. It's bigger than most people realize.
It really is huge. I mean, you have 600,000 to an outskirt of 1 million people living here.
Yep.
And so when I'm reaching 400 or 500 homes a night,
it's a drop in the bucket. Yeah.
Well, right? I will tell you this, though, because our friend Scott Winkler, it impacted him.
Oh, good.
It did. I mean, and he told me that at church. And he's done a lot of our shows with us. He actually was kind of our legal expert for a while. His mom is going through a bout with cancer right now. So Scott, we're praying for Carol Winkler. And so, but it impressed him so much.
Good.
He wanted to come talk to me at church, came backstage and said, hey, I just met that.
Well, because we know Mike's actually involved in the area, and you're involved in Bakersfield specifically, Kern County.
Yeah.
And you're making a difference.
We're trying to, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but we're working with a group downtown Bakersfield, working with Bakersfield Police Department. We're doing a Building Bridges campaign where we've invited Bakersfield Police Department and the youth here to join our youth that we have a sports program with, and we're going to begin competing with the youth in Kern County, with those in Tulare County. At our soccer program, we had over 1,000 children that showed up.
Really?
And so they're going to start working with us, creating their program of a youth athletic program where the Sacramento Kings, LA Clippers, and NFL, NBA, and the NFL are all involved. And so that stuff people don't know that we didn't promote in the campaign, because I'm a community guy.
Yes.
And if we can merge these counties to become partners, man, we can change things.
Well, that's so interesting that you say that, right? Because I grew up kind of in between Tulare and Kern, because my family had farm and agriculture in Tulare County.
In Oildale.
Oildale. Well, where are you going with this one, Tom? So
you said between Kern County and Tulare.
So we had the farm in Tulare County. Mm-hmm. We lived in Kern County. But it's almost like two different worlds. Like there's like two different worlds.
There is, and I'll tell you politically and as far as the people are concerned, what's funny is
the cultures are very similar.
Very similar. We have people from Bakersfield who work in Tulare County, mm-hmm. and we have people in Tulare County who work in Kern, and they're back and forth on that 65. And that's one of the things I would have done if I would have gotten into Congress is bring some federal money to that 65 and widen it out.
Death Alley.
Yeah, it's bad. And every time we come through there's some type of incident or accident. But anyway, having said that, the cultures are very much the same, but yet uniquely there's different problems.
Yeah.
I'd like to turn the page now to talk about some future stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to collaborate. So talking to our audience now, we're going to collaborate with a podcast with Mike Boudreau. And we're really excited because part of our vision is to magnify people's voices because
people that are making a difference, yeah.
1 Thessalonians 5:11 talks about the work that people are doing for the saints and continue to do it. We want to magnify those voices. So we're really excited to join with you, Mike, and bring something fresh here. And you sent me a list the other day of some potential guests, and I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
We'll need to have some security.
You might have to.
But we want to do a weekly podcast so you guys will get an update because as I know, if you're not pouring a lot of money into a campaign, you do need a digital space out there and be able to talk. And that we're going to come in and support that. And
we believe in Mike and we believe in what Mike's doing. So we want to get behind that.
Yes. And so explain to give them the idea of 2 years ago.
I think it's so funny because you and I have been talking offline and you guys have both become friends of mine. And regardless of whatever happened in the campaign, we all were going to be connected somehow, which I like. And that's the other thing, too, is I've developed so much relationships and friendships here in Kern County and Bakersfield and up and down the district. But 2.5 years ago, I just got this knowing, that I was going to have a platform or at least set off into a platform of podcast. In the mind, my thought process was, well, how am I ever going to do that? I don't know. So I talked to my wife. I said, I was telling you earlier, should I get a microphone? Should I get a camera? Or maybe I should do this? I'm not sure, but I feel like that maybe we can reach out to the masses and inform them of what's happening on a different platform. Well, that kind of faded for a while. And getting into the next year, I felt like I was supposed to do a podcast and somehow reach people and inform. Because what's happening, where I become frustrated as an elected official and a law enforcement officer, the masses of people who live here are not being informed.
Yes.
The media is not telling the true story. And so how do we circumvent that? Mm-hmm. And I felt like I kept getting this, I call it having the ears to hear or a God knowing or a God nudge. Hey, you need to get on and start telling the people from away from the media and into something like this. Well, fast forward to our conversation and you reach out to me and you say, would you be interested in becoming a host for your own podcast? And the 2 years of me struggling with how am I going to do this? And, is this something we really should do? Boom. God just put it together that fast overnight, put it together. And it's so incredibly, it's just such a blessing, from you guys, but as well as when God's whispering to you, because don't worry about it. I'm going to make it happen.
And we try to figure it out, don't we?
Yeah, I tried to figure it out.
That's how many times do we have that conversation about how are we going to do and we're fortunately I have a good mentor here, Mike. Let's not try to figure out how we're going to do it. Let's just trust that God gave us the word to do it.
Yeah, and if I can just continue on that path is that I was struggling with, should I get a camera? Should I get a microphone? Should I sit at my table in the kitchen? How am I going to reach out? Should I get a Facebook Live? How am I going to do this? Struggle. And then just when you're not thinking about it, because I had prayed too, I said, well, God, if you want this to happen, then really I'm going to need your help. I don't know what I'm doing. And, and then we fast forward and God goes, hey, the prayer that you said about me handling it, I know you forgot about it, but I didn't. And here you go. And so that's what happened.
And I'm telling you, and I love this about Shannon, Senator Groves.
Mm-hmm.
She was driving to, and she wanted to join us tonight, but she's up there doing business And I think she said there's 183 bills they had to vote on.
More than that. There's like 270.
I kind of added that up and I go, how do you even do that? But that's what she's doing. So she was going to join us, but she was driving up there and she would call me. And in the background was worship music. And she goes, I'm just worshiping on my drive up to Sacramento. And I'm thinking, how many other senators do this?
Well, as a sheriff, I've sat when she was the Senate Minority Leader and we sat in her office. And before she even went down to the floor, because I worked with her and others on bills, and I worked with her on an ag bill, and that came together, and I testified before on the floor and worked with her on the human trafficking bill. And so before she goes in, she puts everybody in this room and they all sit there and pray.
That's awesome.
And she goes around the table. Anybody want to pray? Here we're praying, and she has pastors in there, and they pray.
So cool.
And we're at the state capitol in the Senate Minority Office, which is hers, and we're praying. We prayed for half an hour before we even stood up, and walked down. Matter of fact, her staff had to interrupt. Senator, it's time. We need to go testify. And so she goes, Mike, you ready? I said, yeah, I'm ready. And so we went down. She sat on my right, or I think it was on my right, but we sat down, and there we were testifying before the committee.
I love that.
And I think that's what so many people don't realize about California. They think California is just LA and San Francisco, and there's not a Christian here in the world.
Well, and that's what I said to you too, because you were saying, hey, I want you to come up with, your own ideas, your own guests and anything. And so one of the things I said is within the podcast, we want to find the red in California.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to find the red because it's here.
It is.
And what
much more than people realize.
Much more. And I think we've been fooled by the media. And I honestly think California is way more red than anybody believes. How do we get that message out there? Because no one believes that our children should be indoctrinated. No one does. But somehow it's being passed.
Well, that's why the big rise in homeschooling.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's, I was very impressed when you were talking about, because you are president of this Sheriff's Association, which is all the sheriffs in California. And you were talking about how they also have similar beliefs.
Oh, many of the sheriffs.
And giving you a voice gives them a voice, because they may sit down in front of a camera or whatever, but they seem to edit those things out.
Most of those sheriffs are believers.
Yes. And that's
most of them.
And that's what inspired me to think that message needs to get out, because if you would just assume, which is not a good way to do this, is that you would assume different. But when you hear of them, I think, as we see God's people thrive, and in Egypt, what did the Pharaoh say? Man, these people are multiplying so fast.
I'll tell you, California is full of believing sheriffs. They're Christians. I'll tell you, I have sat with them and prayed. I had one going through a little bit of a trouble. I said, let's get over here and pray real quick. He goes, thanks, Mike. We went over to the corner. I put my hand on his shoulder. We started praying. And, one of the guests that I'm hoping to get, and I know that he will come on, and that's Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. And Chad Bianco is a huge believer, and he's running for governor.
Wow.
So there's a lot of change, and there's sheriffs that are stepping up. Like myself, I stood up and ran for Congressional District 20. We have a sheriff that's looking to run for governor of the state of California. We have another sheriff. He's looking to potentially get into the assembly. We're tired. We're frustrated, and we're ready for believers and constitutionally elected officials getting in and saying, that's it.
Because you and I talked about this off air, that sheriffs are the bastion for the people and law enforcement.
Well, here, look at
everybody else is appointed except for the sheriff.
When we talk about the state being a red state, look at the sheriffs who are elected in each county. These sheriffs are dominant Republicans. Conservative Republican sheriffs elected by the people in each county. So how do you have over 90% of the sheriffs in the state of California, Republican sheriffs, conservative sheriffs, believing in the Constitution, but yet you're saying that the state of California is blue and they don't believe in what we believe in? And I don't buy that. The sheriffs in the state of California are predominant believers and Republican conservative sheriffs.
And they're to support the people that put them in office.
That's right.
And that's what impresses me about you, because one of the things you've said is, I'm all the people's sheriff.
That's right.
I support all of them. I mean, I don't treat them any different. And I believe that even sets a person of faith apart, where they can say, I can set down all those boundaries that maybe other people put up and care about the person. Lead somebody to the Lord, pray for an ill person with cancer when you're there to promote what you're running for. But that one person, and that's what Jesus taught us, right? That one person is worth it. And that's what you've been doing. And this is where I love it. It catches other people's attention.
So Can we get a kind of a glimpse of who some of the future potential guests are going to be? And you don't even have to say they've committed to it.
They haven't committed to it, but there's a lot of people who I know who have become personal friends of mine over the years up and down the state of California. I'm very interested in having Chad Bianco come on. Mm-hmm. That's a big one, especially as a potential gubernatorial candidate. That's huge. The director of the Drug Enforcement Administration here in the state of California, to get with the Attorney General's office, potentially even Bonta, the Attorney General. I'll be speaking to him this next week. And so there's a lot of potential great candidates up and down the state of California that will come. Director of Border Patrol and Homeland Security. I know the director of the Central Valley, the director for Homeland Security, and I know that I've talked to him and he's potentially thinking about coming on. So there's guests that will come on this show where the state of California, the people who live here go, wait a minute, we weren't told that. And you weren't told that because the media is not telling you that.
Well, and I even love it because Pierre Wilson, who is National Director of Blexit, wants to be on the show.
Take him. That'd be awesome.
But there again, you have a community that is moving in the Black community that wants to come on, and because they have the faith system that we do, and they just became the largest grassroots community organization. They just got blessed with that.
And we know Shannon will come on in a heartbeat.
Shannon will come on in a heartbeat.
She's been pitching all sorts of guests at us as well.
Well, then Jesse Hooligan, and he had Lexit, which is Latinos exiting.
And I think it's so important for both of those men to come on, for America to hear, for California to hear, because look, the Black community, Hispanic, Latino community, there's this perception that they're one way.
Yes.
Right? Myth. It's not reality. And who I deal with is hardworking, strong American, conservative, believing in the Black community and Latino, Hispanic community. Look, in the Latino community in my area, they are switching over to conservative. And the reason
I think that's nationwide.
It's nationwide because, look, when you talk about our Hispanic Latino community, they're hard workers. They don't want freebies from the government.
Yeah.
They believe in family first. They support family.
More so than a lot of Caucasians.
You tell me. And so when it comes to talk about abortion and God, a majority, if a huge majority of our Hispanic Latino communities, either Catholic and or some faith-based
they're
group,
very conservative.
They do not believe in abortion. And so when you have these, when you begin to inform people, they begin to switch over and go, look, we have not been told the truth. And there's this huge movement within the Black community as well as Hispanic Latino community that they go, hey, we are here for our families and we work hard for our families. And that story needs to be told.
Well, it'd be cool to get both of those guys on together, Tom.
Well, that and also Richard Ramos, who has a group called Parents on a Mission, but he also used to be the CEO for the Latino Coalition.
So there's going to be a lot of exciting guests that we can talk to. There's going to be some very intriguing and very sensitive questions and information that'll be shared. But I think it's important for people to hear. I would like to get with some educators as well, talking about our schools and school districts and what we're facing.
My wife's a superintendent in the public school here, and your wife's an educator.
I'd like to have both them in these two chairs.
My wife would love to join.
We can get on Turning Point Academy as well.
Turning Point Academy.
So the show's going to be very, very exciting, and we're going to ask that people just share it, start chattering about it, and let's change California. Let's get what I said the other day, and I believe it. Let's make California golden again.
I love that.
So hope you enjoyed today's show. We're going to be coming right back as soon as we can get our in-studio producer, our executive producer. We got the good one today. Well, there again, Scott Garcia is always amazing. Pastor Scott Garcia. And so there again, like and share us. We'll be coming back with a little update on what happened today in New York. So don't go anywhere.
See y'all soon. Have a great day. God bless.
Well, anybody need to do a pee break?
No.